How's it going, YouTube? Dylan here. In this video, we're going to talk about how to switch programming languages once you've learned one. So I got a comment from one of my subscribers that basically told me that they were learning Flutter and they basically wanted to move to the MERN stack, and they had questions on how to actually transition into this. So before we get started in the video, for those of you who are new viewers to the channel, hi, my name is Donald. I am currently a freelance iOS developer, and the purpose of my channel is to really be that big brother that I wish I had when I started to learn how to code. So let's get right into it, and let's answer that question. So to give you a little bit of background, so my first language that I actually would say that I got competent in was Swift. So basically mobile development. So recently I had a project at work that, I was trying to make an Android app. I was trying to determine whether it was a good idea for me to make an Android app or a full stack web app. Now the reason I couldn't make a Swift app at that particular job was because we were using Windows computers, right? In order to program on a Mac, you need to have a Mac, obviously, right? Apple and their typical walled garden. So I had a decision to make. I needed to learn how a new language so that I could, provide value for the company, show them that I'm a good employee for that particular company. So what did I do? So what I did was I had a project in mind that I thought, let's see. So I know Swift. What is the closest language to Swift that I could potentially use? So what I did was I basically looked up some of the syntax and looked at the differences between different syntax. And what I came up with is even though between JavaScript and Kotlin, I just found that JavaScript had a lot of similarities to Swift. You have the curly brackets. The only thing that I found to be different was the fact that, JavaScript, you didn't have to deal with optionals, right? So if you're dealing with, say, no values, then you have to use that little question mark in between, which is kind of annoying sometimes, but that's a different story for another day. And obviously in Swift, you have structs, which come from the C-based languages like C, C++, and stuff like that. Whereas JavaScript just has classes, right? So those are the main differences, and I had a task to do. I had to work with this new language that I was unfamiliar with. So how did I do it? So what I did was I basically wrote out all my code on VS Code in Swift, and I basically used ChatGPT to translate it into JavaScript. Now this is the easiest way to do it, and this is what I found to be the most effective, simply because of the fact that, I'm working in the workplace, I have deadlines to fulfill, so I wanted to take the lazy way so that, I would be comfortable in the language of my choice, and then just move quickly, and then iterate really, really quickly, right? But you might be in a different scenario, so I'm going to talk about that. So if you want the easiest scenario, I would choose a language that you're comfortable with and try to code that out in that particular language. Now the question you might be asking yourself is, what if it's a whole different platform? Well, that's going to cover my second point in this video. Unfortunately, there is no easy way to do it, but what you can do is you want to choose a language that's really close to what you're learning right now, and you want to go over and you want to build slowly, right? So how I like to build projects and how I like to build my programming ones is I like to deal usually with the UI first, which is usually going to be the easiest part. Then I deal with the backend stuff. So the backend stuff being, I call my REST API. If I'm doing it on device, if I'm doing mobile, or I'm doing it in the web with a JSON, if I'm doing, say, maybe a web app or even a mobile app, that's going to be something. And then I deal with the backend stuff. So if you're familiar with the mobile side of things, I would deal with the view, then I deal with the model, and then I deal with the view model. And the view model being my logic, right? So you take care of the things that you can easily see, and then you take care of the data that you need to get from various sources, and then you deal with the logic in between to get it between the two. That's how I like to approach problems. So once you know these fundamental concepts, then you can pretty much apply it to any language. So let's just say that you were doing Flutter, for example, and you wanted to move to the MERN stack, right? What you do is you start by building the UI components, right? You know, if you're building a UI component, you say, okay, so I want to build a button in the middle, for example, and I want to have some text over top of it. How do I do that? How do I center my div? You know, and then you look up on Stack Overflow or you use ChatGPT to do that. The key here is it doesn't really matter what language that you're actually learning, but it matters how you put the pieces together. So if you take into account what I've taught you in this video today, it should get you 90% of the way. All you need to do is you need to look up the details inside of a Stack Overflow or ChatGPT, and that's going to really help you to get that further away. Because what I found is once I got a hold of Swift, moving to a different language was pretty easy, right? As long as they had a lot of similarities to each other, then it would be a very, very simple transition. Now, if you're going from a language that has no similarity to each other, that's where things can get a little bit...
One sec. I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Sorry, that was Siri there. But anyway, Shut up, Siri. I'll edit that out. So what you want to do is you want to take a language that is close to each other, because the problem is when you take a language that is, unrelated. So let's say, extreme example, you're going from a Python to assembly language. Then you had to learn registers. You had to learn moving between registers. You had to learn memory management. That's a lot of stuff. So my general recommendation is if you want to move from, say, what he was asking was Flutter to the MERN stack, what you want to do is you just want to take it by UI components and learn from there. So if you don't understand something like, I'm not sure what Flutter's syntax is, so I'm going to use an example that I know well, which is Swift. He's like, okay, I don't know what a struct is. So what is a struct? Well, a struct is going to be, like basically I think of it like a template. So you're going to define your codable protocols there. You're going to define your codable so that you get the data from the JSON, for example, and you're going to call your API. Well, how do you do that? Well, I probably need a completion handler, and then I probably need to set my URL, do a URL session, do a data task, retrieve the data task, etc., 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 right? So you take that knowledge. Well, how do you do it in another language, right? So that's probably the most challenging part, is just going between the languages. And overall, the most important thing is learning a language through and through until you understand it completely. Because the thing is, a lot of people trick themselves into thinking that, they know a language and they actually don't. In order to know that you actually know a language, you have to think, can I build products from scratch? Or can I add new features? Can I understand the majority of the language that I'm actually learning? And then from there, once you have a grasp of that, moving between languages is pretty easy. All you need to do is break down what you're doing and then find out the syntax in order to make that happen. So if you guys enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.